Hello again, Year 9. So today I'm showing you how to make macaroni cheese, which is the first recipe that I'm going to show you, which uses one of the mother sauces, and that sauce is bechamel. So the ingredients that you'll need, and this is for 2 people, I have got plain flour and I have got 20 grams. And if you remember, to make a roux, I need an equal quantity of fat to flour. So I have got butter, and that is 20 grams. I have got pasta in the macaroni shape, which in Italian means elbow, and I have got 125 grams. I have got cheese. I've got strong mature cheddar and 125 grams again. I have got some frozen sweet corn and some frozen peas, roughly 2 tablespoons of each. And I have got milk, and for milk I need 300 millilitres. That's all that you need to make a basic macaroni cheese. So I'm going to make a start on cooking it now. Right, so first thing that I need to do is I need to half fill a pan with hot water. So I've got this pan here that I have filled using hot water from my kettle just to make sure it boils a little quicker. This is to cook the actual macaroni in. Good tip for cooking pasta is use the biggest pan you've got and always make sure you put as much water in it as you can, which allows the pasta to move around. So I'm going to put that on to start heating it up. Also, I'm going to put the lid on because that will hopefully help it to boil a little quicker. Right, so while I've put that on, I'm going to start making my roux, which I showed you how to do last lesson. So I've got my butter, which I'm going to pop in first, and then I'm going to melt it. There we go. So I've got hold of the handle and I'm just going to move the butter around a little bit. My heat is fairly high, but not too high because I don't want to burn the butter. So just keep moving it around to help it to melt. I'm aiming to make a white roux to go with this, which if you're thinking back to the video that you saw, that takes 2 to 3 minutes to cook. Turn this heat up a little more. There we go. So I don't want to put my flour in until the butter has all melted. That's starting to get going nicely now. Now, if you don't want to use proper butter, you can use margarine. You can use oil and use 20 millilitres instead of 20 grams. Right, so that's now melted. So equal amounts of flour, pop that in and stir straight away. And you will see that starting to come together to make that thick paste, which we called roux. So 2 to 3 minutes, stirring it constantly. Make sure the heat is gentle because we don't want to burn this. You can see the colour starting to deepen a little bit as the flour starts to cook. It's not the most attractive thing in the world to cook, but I'm sure you've worked out that roux is very, very important when we're making sauces. Right, so that hasn't quite been the 2 to 3 minutes. But I am happy with the colour. I'm happy that the flour has cooked out a little bit. So I'm just going to turn the heat off on that and I'm going to measure my milk. Right, so I'm just going to remind you how to measure using a measuring jug properly. So I know you can't see this very well, but we measure in millilitres. So I'm looking to where that is first before I start. And then, I'm sure you'll remember this, have this on a flat surface, go down eye level to it, hopefully not spilling it on the counter like I just did. Because I'm sure you'll remember from your lessons in year 7 and 8 that if you measure held up like this, you can't accurately see what you are getting. Right, oh, that's really good timing. My water is now starting to bubble inside the pan, so I'm just going to flick over so you can see. Here we go. I know you can't see it fully, but my water is starting to simmer, so that is virtually ready for my macaroni to go in. So there we go, we're starting to get onto a boil now. So 125 grams of the macaroni goes in, and I want to leave that to simmer for 10 minutes. I'm just setting my timer for 10 minutes. There we go. So remember, a simmer is not lots and lots of really ferocious bubbles, it's just a few gentle ones. So I'm going to keep an eye on that and make sure it's not bubbling too much. I can carry on now with my bechamel sauce. So I'm going to pop the heat back on, nice and gentle, and I'm going to swap this spoon for a whisk. So I've got my balloon whisk. Right, so I've got the milk. I am not going to put all of the milk in one go because it's really easy to make your sauce lumpy if you do that. So I just put a little bit in and I stir it in. And you can see straight away, now that milk has dissolved in and I've gone back to a paste-like substance like my original roux. I could put a bit more of the milk in. Again, not too much in one go. Give it a stir, make sure it's going nice and smooth again. It looks a little bit like dodgy mashed potato at first, but bear with me, it will come. Right, so it's all smooth again, far too thick, more milk. Turning my pasta down at the same time. There we go. So keep on stirring with the whisk and it will turn into a smoother sauce. So that is nearly there. Last of the milk goes in. And stir it together again. So if you remember from the lesson, what's happening right now is the starch inside the flour is getting heated up. The cell walls are breaking down, which means that those starch granules can now start to absorb the liquid around it like little sponges. As they absorb more and more, they get to a point where they're swelling more and more, and then they can't hold any more of that liquid, which is the milk in this case, so they burst. And that thickens everything around them, and the process was gelatinization. Right, so I am happy with that sauce, so I'm going to take the heat off. I'm just going to leave it on my hob. I'll prove to you, there you go, my flame has gone. Move the whisk out of the way. And I'm now going to put my frozen peas in and my sweet corn. These are still frozen. You do not need to boil them or defrost them at all. They could just go in as they are. That'll be lovely. Right, so my next thing is cheese. So I'm just going to flick over to the other camera again. There we go. Right, so I've got a cheese grater like this. It's got a little pot underneath it. Any sort of grater will do as long as you get the cheese grated. So remember, down is the way to grate, not up, because up just smears the cheese all over the grater. It doesn't actually grate it at all. Be careful of your hands. We don't want finger macaroni cheese, please. Now, if you have got larger pieces like I've got here, don't worry about that. It will go inside the sauce absolutely fine. It will melt away. Just get the bulk of the cheese grated nicely. I have used a mature cheddar because that means that I get a really nice cheesy flavour without having to use absolutely tons of cheese. This is still a fair amount, 125 grams for 2 people, but if I was using a mild cheddar, I would need to use more. Now, cheese is lovely. I love eating cheese. I'm sure my husband will tell you that I'm very well known for just eating cheese out the fridge, but it's not good for you. It is a saturated fat. So if you can use less of it, then always go with that. So the mature cheese works really well for this. Right, there we go. Made a bit of a mess, but never mind. Right, okay, so I'm going to put, in fact, I don't need to switch the camera for this actually. I'm going to put roughly probably 2/3 of this cheese into the sauce. Now, I've not got this on the heat, remember, I have turned the heat off. I don't need the heat on at this point. Cheese, because it's got such a high fat content, melts really easy. So the residual heat inside this sauce is just going to melt that straight away. I don't need to turn that on. Right, so we started with a roux. We started with a white roux. I then added milk, which turned it into a bechamel sauce. Then I added cheese, and that turned the bechamel sauce into a cheese sauce. So all that I need to do now is wait for my macaroni, and that's got 4 minutes. Then I'm going to drain the macaroni and then combine the two. So I shall see you once my pasta is cooked. Okay, so my 10 minutes is up and I have cooked the macaroni. I've drained it in the colander. Try and remember things that I taught you in year 7 and 8 with colanders, to take this over to the sink, place it into the sink so it is stood in there, then pour the hot saucepan and content into here. I have placed it on the top of the empty saucepan so that I am not dribbling water everywhere. Right, okay, so I am going to mix the two now, hopefully without knocking the camera flying. Let's just switch. There we go. Right, so the macaroni is going to go into here. Oops. Hopefully not all over my hob. Okay, so really gently, because the pasta is now cooked, you stir it through. But if I just show you, it's soft, but it should still be what we call al dente, which translates as firm to the tooth, which means it's got a slight bite to it. Okay, so stir it through gently because you don't want to turn your pasta into mush. Now that is ready to serve into your bowl, or if you wanted to, you could put it into an oven-proof dish. You could put some breadcrumbs over the top and the rest of the cheese, which we saved, which I have still got here. And then you could pop it under a hot grill for a couple of minutes, just for the breadcrumbs and the cheese to start toasting. And that is a process called au gratin, which makes a really nice, interesting texture on the top of something which is ultimately very soft and a little bit sticky, which is this now. However, when we're cooking this in the food room with the 1-hour lessons, we don't really have time to do that. So I'm just showing you the basic macaroni cheese. So I am going to dish this up. There we go. So this was enough for 2 people. A A bit more. There we go. And then to finish off, I would just cover with the cheese. I'm not going to use this all because my second portion is still in the pan. There we are. Now, my only criticism of that would be it looks very beige. So if you were serving this in a restaurant, I would say to add some maybe parsley, garnish, something like that to top it, to add a little bit more fresh colour to make it look fantastic. But there you go. In fact, actually, that's quite a good idea. My husband just whispered to me bacon, little crispy bits of bacon, fried, obviously don't put it on raw, would go really nice sprinkled on top, and that would add new taste, nice salty taste, new texture because it'd be nice and crispy. But obviously if you're vegetarian, don't go for that one. Okay, so that is it. The recipe I will type up in the comments on the YouTube channel, and I will be sharing with you on class charts. So that's it from me now. Bye.